Okay, we're on? Great. I always loved stories about great players, and that was one of the fun things about Maynard. He was a great storyteller, like a lot of jazz players are, especially the old timers. They have great stories. Well, one of the things, if you like jazz players and you love stories and you want to hear history, and I'm not just talking about history that could supplement like a textbook, I'm talking about the history that the textbook should supplement this particular history I'm talking about. Go to YouTube and type in Monk Rowe interviews. Monk Rowe. Monk Rowe. Monk Rowe. And Monk Rowe teaches at Hamilton College. And he's been doing interviews for, gosh, I don't know, 20 years or more. And he has some great interviews. And this is going to go down as some of the most important historical folklore as we move on into the future and we lose more and more of these great players. But Monk Rowe, if you haven't heard of him or you don't know anything about him, just go to YouTube and type that in, Monk Rowe interviews. And I don't know, easily over 100 interviews of great jazz people. And I'm talking about people from the whole range. And a good portion of these players, they're not with us anymore. And what's great about it, well, there's three things I think that are great about it and why you have to check it out. You just have to check out what he does. He interviews people that were like my heroes when I was a kid. So right now it's 2019, it's January, I'm 64. I've been listening to Snooky Young, even before I knew it was Snooky Young, with the Basie Band, since before I could walk. But I never heard Snooky talk. I never heard Snooky in an interview. But Monk has an interview with Snooky Young and Gerald Wilson, and I'm listening to this interview, and it's great. It's great because this is a hero of mine, not just someone who plays great, but someone that's like part of my life that I've never really heard talk. I only heard the music. But to hear him talk and to hear the stories are just fantastic. So, I mean, he interviews everybody. He's got Ed Shaughnessy. He interviews Nat Adderley, Don Menza, Bill Holman, great writer. I mean, it's not even worth putting out names because I'm going to forget at least 80 of them, but you name it. Nancy Wilson, some people who you would never see get interviewed. Ron Carter. Oh my gosh, Carmen Leggio, who's somebody I've always heard about and I don't know anything about. But here's a beautiful interview. Anyway, Monk Rowe interviews. So not only do you get a chance to hear some of your favorites, Monk knows how to interview people. He's great at it. He's great. He'll ask a question and he'll just let the person talk. He's not trying to interject any of his own stuff. He's totally there with a lot of respect and reverence like we all have. I think that's one of the things that I identify with is for a lot of us, there's a reverence to these players. These are the people that are our heroes, and they made us love this stuff. We fell in love with it because of how they played. So Monk is a great interviewer. He can interview anybody. Lionel Hampton. I didn't know Lionel Hampton played drums with Louis Armstrong. Anyway, Monk really knows how to let the person being interviewed tell their story, and he supports it. He knows just how to let them go on, and it's just great. And then the third thing that I think is great about it, I just put these interviews on while I'm cleaning up or something, and I put on some interviews of people who I would never even think to listen to their interview. So a saxophone player and arranger. I know who Wayne Andre is, who he was. He was a great trombone player, but I only knew his name from the record jackets that I would read. And this was a guy who was on a lot of sessions. That's all I knew about him. But in listening to an interview of Wayne Andre, great trombone player, it's unbelievable. It was great. He's talking about New York, how New York sort of the whole scene changed and what happened and what it was like to be with Benny Goodman in Russia. And man, unbelievable stories. I would have never thought to have looked at a Wayne Andre interview Or I see Denis Zeitlin, who's a great piano player, but I don't know anything about Denis Zeitlin, anything at all. I didn't know what records he did. It was just another name. And if it wasn't for this interview, I would have continued to probably go until the wheels come off and not know anything about Denis Zeitlin. But Denis Zeitlin is a psychiatrist and a jazz player, and he got into this whole thing about why some people can or can't play or take to improvising. How some people, as a teacher, it was really enlightening. He talks about different situations why people block themselves from being able to improvise from a psychiatrist's point of view. It was unbelievable. As soon as I heard it, I rewound it. I listened to it 3 times. I would have never ever thought to have checked him out. So, Monk Rowe interviews. Just check them out. They'll speak for themselves. He interviews a lot of people that you've heard of, some you didn't hear of, and don't let that bother you, because you should check out almost all of them, because they're all have something that you could learn from. 2, he's a great interviewer. He knows just how to do it and stay out of the way. Monk's great. And 3, there are little gems. Check out these unknown people, because they're gems in those interviews. Great stuff. Bill Holman interview was great. Jake Hanna, what a riot. Jack Sheldon. It just goes on and on. So anyway, Monk Rowe interviews on YouTube. Check them out. They're fantastic. These will be a great addition to any jazz history course. In fact, they are jazz. They are the real jazz history. These are the stories that you're not going to find in a book. Anyway, Monk Rowe interviews.